In the lively and bustling town of Akure, Nigeria, life moves with an energetic rhythm. Street vendors shout to attract customers, children laugh and run through dusty paths, and motorcycles zoom past, adding to the chaos of a town always on the move. Amidst this vibrant setting lives a young, loving mother named Ifeoma. She is known for her warm smile and strong spirit, despite the challenges life has thrown her way. Ifeoma has a beautiful son, little Kamsi, who is the light of her life and the heart of her happiness. Ifeoma's life hasn't been without struggle. After the tragic death of her father, things became complicated. Her father had left behind a considerable inheritance, but instead of giving it directly to Ifeoma, the family's wealth was placed under the control of two women, Amaka, her cunning and manipulative stepmother, and Mama Ngozi, her domineering grandmother. Amaka and Mama Ngozi were not women with pure hearts. Amaka, with her sharp tongue and fake smiles, had always been envious of Ifeoma's privileged life as the favoured daughter. Mama Ngozi, on the other hand, ruled the household like a queen. She believed in control and obedience, thinking that Ifeoma's independence was a challenge to her authority. Although surrounded by betrayal and greed, Ifeoma found joy in her simple life with Kamsi. The bond between mother and child was unbreakable. She saw her son as her greatest treasure, worth far more than any inheritance or luxury. Yet, unknown to her, danger lurked closer than she could ever imagine. A dark plan was brewing in the hearts of Amaka and Mama Ngozi, a plan that would shatter Ifeoma's world and test the strength of a mother's love. This story begins with a seemingly ordinary day in Akure, but it would soon unfold into a tale filled with betrayal, courage, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. Ifeoma was a woman shaped by strength and survival. Though life had not always been kind, she faced every challenge with grace and resilience. She was married to Chima, a well-known and successful businessman in Akure. Chima was not just wealthy, but also deeply supportive and loving, a man who admired his wife's independence and devotion to their son, little Kamsi. Together, they lived a seemingly perfect life, a life filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. But beneath this picture-perfect happiness was a painful truth. Ifeoma carried scars that money could not heal. Her father, Chief Okonkwo, had been a wealthy, respected man in Akure. He adored his daughter and often told her, "Ifeoma, you are my pride. You will lead this family to greatness." He promised her security and a bright future. But tragedy struck unexpectedly. Chief Okonkwo's sudden death turned Ifeoma's world upside down. After his passing, the family estate and wealth became a source of conflict. Instead of honouring Chief Okonkwo's wishes to leave everything to his daughter, the family elders made a shocking decision. Ifeoma's inheritance would be managed by two women, her cunning stepmother, Amaka, and her domineering grandmother, Mama Ngozi. This decision was like handing a lamb over to wolves. Amaka was a woman with a heart full of jealousy and deceit. She had always envied the love Chief Okonkwo showered on Ifeoma and saw this inheritance as her chance to seize power. With her sweet but dangerous smile, she pretended to care for Ifeoma while secretly plotting ways to take what was not hers. Mama Ngozi was no better. A traditional woman with an iron will, she believed that women should be submissive and never question authority. To her, Ifeoma's independence and success with Chima were signs of rebellion that needed to be controlled. Mama Ngozi thought it was her duty to keep Ifeoma in check, even if it meant crushing her dreams. The two women, bound by greed and a thirst for control, saw Ifeoma as an obstacle. They believed that if they could break her, they would gain full control of Chief Okonkwo's wealth. But breaking Ifeoma would not be easy. She was not just a mother. She was a warrior for her son. However, Amaka and Mama Ngozi were not done plotting. They wanted more than just money. They wanted to strip Ifeoma of everything she loved, including her most precious treasure, Kamsi. Little did Ifeoma know that the women she shared her life with were sharpening their claws for a betrayal that would soon shake her world to its very core. Amaka and Mama Ngozi sat in the dimly lit living room of Mama Ngozi's old house, plotting their next move like two predators circling their prey. The air was thick with the scent of greed and betrayal. Their target was clear: Ifeoma, the young woman they both envied and resented. Despite controlling her inheritance, it wasn't enough. They wanted to strip her of everything, starting with the one thing that truly made her strong, her son, little Kamsi. To them, Kamsi wasn't just a child. He was a symbol of Ifeoma's happiness, strength, and security. With Kamsi by her side, Ifeoma had the love and loyalty of her husband, Chima, and the right to everything her father had left behind. Amaka and Mama Ngozi knew that as long as Kamsi existed, Ifeoma would always be a threat. "It's simple," Mama Ngozi said, her voice low but filled with cold determination. "If the boy is gone, Chima will have no reason to stay with her." She leaned back in her wooden chair, folding her arms as if the matter was already settled. Amaka's lips curled into a sly smile. "Exactly. No child, no future. Without an heir, Chima will leave her. She'll be all alone, broken. And when she's weak, we take control of everything." Her eyes gleamed with malicious excitement as the plan began to take shape in her mind. The idea was cruel, but they had convinced themselves it was necessary. Mama Ngozi, a master of manipulation, believed that Ifeoma was too bold and independent for her own good. She saw the young woman's strength as defiance, a challenge to her authority. Amaka, driven by jealousy, simply wanted to see Ifeoma fall, to see her stripped of the happiness that Amaka believed she didn't deserve. The plan was as wicked as it was calculated. They wouldn't harm Kamsi outright. That would be too risky. Instead, they decided to take him away, far away, where no one would ever find him. An orphanage in a distant village was their chosen destination. With Kamsi gone, Chima would be heartbroken. Amaka and Mama Ngozi were certain that he would blame Ifeoma for the disappearance and eventually leave her. Once she was isolated and devastated, they could swoop in and claim complete control over the wealth and property. But timing was everything. They needed to wait for the perfect opportunity. "We'll do it when Chima is away on one of his business trips," Mama Ngozi said with confidence. "No one will suspect a thing." Amaka nodded, already imagining the victory that awaited them. "We'll drug her," she suggested. "Make her sleep so deeply she won't even hear us take the boy." The two women smiled wickedly at each other, their bond now strengthened by shared evil. They believed their plan was flawless, that nothing could go wrong. But fate had other ideas. Unbeknownst to them, a quiet figure was watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to intervene. And what they underestimated most was the power of a mother's love, a force far greater than their greed and cruelty combined. Despite the comfort and wealth surrounding her, Ifeoma never let material things define her happiness. She was a woman who knew what truly mattered in life, and for her, that was her son, Kamsi. No amount of money or luxury could compare to the joy she felt when holding him in her arms, hearing his innocent laughter, or watching his little feet race across their living room. To the world, Ifeoma was a successful woman married to a prosperous businessman. She had inherited her father's legacy and lived in a beautiful home with all the comforts one could imagine. But to her, those things were secondary. Kamsi was her true treasure, the beating heart of her existence. Every morning, before the busy day began, Ifeoma would spend quiet moments with Kamsi, brushing his soft curls and singing lullabies, even though he was already too old for them. His curious questions always made her laugh. "Mama, why does the sky follow us everywhere?" Or, "Do birds have houses too?" She adored how his tiny hands clung to hers when they walked through the town together. It didn't matter if people stared, wondering why a wealthy woman chose to shop in local markets rather than sending a maid. Ifeoma wanted Kamsi to experience life, to understand love and humility, not just wealth and privilege. At night, before he slept, Kamsi would cuddle close to her, his small voice whispering, "Mama, I love you big, big." Her heart would swell with joy every time. "I love you even bigger," she would whisper back, kissing his forehead. These simple moments were her world, moments that no inheritance or mansion could ever replace. Ifeoma protected Kamsi fiercely. She knew that life could be harsh and unpredictable, and after losing her father, she had learned to treasure the ones she loved even more. Her greatest fear was losing Kamsi, the child who had given her life meaning after so much loss and betrayal. What Ifeoma didn't know was that this deep bond would soon be tested in unimaginable ways. Forces of greed and jealousy were lurking nearby, waiting to snatch away the very thing she held dearest. But Ifeoma's love for her son was a shield stronger than anyone could predict, a love that would fight against any darkness threatening her family. It was a quiet, sunny afternoon in Akure. The breeze drifted gently through the open windows of Ifeoma's home, carrying the sweet scent of blooming flowers. Chima had left earlier that morning for a business trip, leaving Ifeoma alone with little Kamsi. The house, which was usually filled with laughter and activity, was calm and peaceful. Ifeoma had just put Kamsi down for his afternoon nap and sat in the living room to rest. She had no idea that danger was creeping closer with every passing minute. Amaka and Mama Ngozi had been waiting for this perfect moment. They knew Chima's absence gave them a golden opportunity to put their evil plan into action. The two women entered the house with false smiles, pretending to care about Ifeoma's well-being. "You've been working too hard," Amaka said sweetly, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You need to rest." Mama Ngozi nodded in agreement. "Yes, you must take care of yourself, my dear. A mother needs her strength." Ifeoma, unaware of their sinister intentions, welcomed them in. She was used to their sudden visits, even if they were often filled with tension. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked politely, trying to maintain peace. No, Amaka insisted with a wide smile. "We brought something for you instead." From her handbag, she pulled out a small bottle of homemade fruit juice. "This is very refreshing. You'll feel so relaxed after drinking it." Ifeoma hesitated for a moment, but didn't want to seem rude. She accepted the drink, unaware that it had been laced with a powerful sleeping drug. The two women watched eagerly as she took slow sips, waiting for the drug to take effect. Within minutes, Ifeoma began to feel strange. Her eyelids grew heavy, and her body felt weak. She tried to shake off the drowsiness, but it was too strong. "I don't know what's happening," she mumbled, her voice fading. "You just need rest, my dear," Mama Ngozi said coldly, masking her satisfaction with fake sympathy. Ifeoma's head sank onto the armrest of the couch as sleep overtook her. Her breathing became slow and steady, and soon she was in a deep, drug-induced slumber. Amaka and Mama Ngozi exchanged wicked glances. The first part of their plan had worked perfectly. With Ifeoma unconscious, the path was clear for them to proceed to the next stage of their scheme, the kidnapping of Kamsi. They moved quickly and quietly, knowing that this was their chance to finally destroy Ifeoma's happiness and claim the wealth they had long desired. But fate has a way of intervening when evil plots are at work. Though the house seemed silent and empty, an unseen force was watching, waiting for the right moment to act. Night fell over Akure, wrapping the town in darkness. The streets were quiet, except for the occasional hum of distant crickets and the rustling of leaves in the cool evening breeze. Inside Ifeoma's house, everything was still. Ifeoma lay motionless on the couch, trapped in a drugged sleep so deep that not even the sound of her own breathing could wake her. In the nursery, little Kamsi slept peacefully, his tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm. He was completely unaware of the danger creeping toward him. Amaka and Mama Ngozi moved through the house like shadows, careful not to make a sound. Their eyes gleamed with a wicked determination as they inched closer to the nursery door. "Be quiet," Mama Ngozi whispered sharply to Amaka, who nodded and clenched her jaw. Every step brought them closer to completing their evil mission. Slowly, they pushed open the nursery door. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a nightlight, shaped like a star. Kamsi lay curled up in his little bed, his favorite blue blanket wrapped around him. For a brief moment, the innocence of the scene made even Amaka hesitate, but greed and jealousy quickly pushed any trace of doubt from her heart. Mama Ngozi, cold and calculating, took charge. "Pick him up," she commanded in a low voice. "We don't have all night." Amaka leaned over and gently lifted Kamsi from the bed. The child stirred slightly, but did not wake. His small body rested limply against her shoulder. "He's so light," Amaka whispered, almost as if talking to herself. "Stop wasting time," Mama Ngozi hissed. "Let's go." With swift, practiced movements, they carried Kamsi out of the nursery and through the back door of the house. The cool night air hit their faces as they hurried toward a waiting car parked a few streets away. The plan was simple but cruel. They would drive Kamsi far from Akure, to an orphanage in a remote village where no one would ever find him. He'll grow up not knowing who he is, Amaka said with a wicked smile as they loaded Kamsi into the back seat. And Ifeoma, she'll be finished. No son, no marriage, no future. Mamangozi nodded grimly. That's how it should be. As they started the car and sped off into the darkness, the town of Akure remained unaware of the terrible crime unfolding. But fate had not abandoned Kamsi. Unknown to Amaka and Mamangozi, a watchful pair of eyes had seen everything from a distance, eyes that belonged to someone who would soon become Ifeoma's unexpected savior. The night was dark and still, with only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl breaking the silence. Most of Akure had already fallen asleep, their homes bathed in shadows. But in a small house near Ifeoma's, Baba Ade sat by his window, enjoying the cool breeze. Baba Ade was an elderly man, known for his wisdom and quiet nature. People in the neighborhood often came to him for advice, as he was a man who spoke little but saw everything. That night, as he gazed out into the street, something unusual caught his attention. He narrowed his eyes, spotting two shadowy figures sneaking out of Ifeoma's back door. Baba Ade's heart skipped a beat. He knew Ifeoma and her family well, and had never seen such strange movements at this late hour. The figures moved quickly and cautiously, carrying what looked like a child bundled in a blanket. Baba Ade's sharp eyes recognized the faces in the dim moonlight. It was Amaka and Mama Ngozi. A deep frown crept onto his face. What were they doing with Ifeoma's son at this time of night? He knew Chima was away, and Ifeoma would never allow Kamsi to be taken without a reason. Baba Ade's instincts told him something was terribly wrong. He had lived long enough to recognize when evil was at work. Staying silent was not an option. These women are up to no good, he muttered under his breath. Grabbing his old but reliable mobile phone, Baba Ade quietly stepped out of his house. He didn't want to confront them directly. That would be dangerous. Instead, he decided to follow them from a safe distance. His sandals made barely a sound on the dusty road as he trailed behind their car, which had been parked a few streets away. As the engine roared to life and the car sped off into the darkness, Baba Ade acted quickly. He pressed the record button on his phone, capturing the license plate and the faces of the women as they drove past under the faint glow of a street lamp. His hands trembled slightly, but his resolve was strong. They think no one is watching, Baba Ade whispered to himself. But I see everything. He knew what he had witnessed was critical. Ifeoma's son was in danger, and only swift action could save him. Baba Ade, despite his age, was determined to be the voice of justice. This quiet, wise man had just become the hidden witness who would change everything. The road out of Akure was long and dark, with only a few dim streetlights guiding the way. The car carrying Amaka, Mamangozi, and little Kamsi sped along, its tires kicking up dust as it raced toward the outskirts of town. The women believed their wicked plan was going smoothly. No one had seen them, and Ifeoma was fast asleep. What they didn't know was that Baba Ade was silently following them, determined to stop their evil scheme. Baba Ade walked swiftly to the main road, his heart pounding, but steady. He hailed a passing motorcyclist, a young man named Tunde, who often ran late-night errands. "Take me down this road quickly," Baba Ade said urgently. "But stay at a distance. I don't want them to see us." The motorcyclist, sensing the seriousness in Baba Ade's voice, nodded without asking questions. The two rode quietly, the cool night air whipping against their faces. Baba Ade kept his eyes fixed on the taillights of the car ahead. His old but functional phone was gripped tightly in his hand, ready to record every detail. As they approached a deserted stretch of road near the town's outskirts, the car slowed down. Baba Ade signaled to Tunde to stop and hide behind some bushes. From there, he had a clear view of the vehicle. The two women got out, whispering to each other as they checked on Kamsi, who was still asleep in the back seat. Baba Ade's fingers trembled slightly as he hit the record button on his phone. The grainy screen showed Amaka's face as she glanced nervously around, while Mamangozi pulled Kamsi out of the car with rough hands. "Be quick," Mamangozi hissed. "We need to get rid of this child before dawn." Baba Ade's heart clenched at their cruelty. How could anyone be so heartless toward an innocent child? But he stayed hidden, knowing that confronting them now would put Kamsi in even greater danger. Instead, he focused on capturing every word, every action, solid evidence that would expose their evil deeds. As the women discussed their next move, Baba Ade whispered to himself, "This video will save that boy. They will not get away with this." When the car door slammed shut and the women drove off again, Baba Ade knew he had what he needed. With the video proof secured, he turned to Tunde. "We must go back now," he said firmly. "There's work to be done. Justice must be served." Baba Ade's quiet bravery and quick thinking had just set the wheels of justice in motion. What the women thought was a perfect crime was about to be exposed by the unlikely hero who had seen everything from the shadows. The first light of dawn crept through the windows, casting a pale glow across Ifeoma's living room. Slowly, the effects of the drug began to wear off, and Ifeoma stirred on the couch. Her head throbbed, and her body felt weak, but something inside her heart tugged harder than the pain, an uneasy feeling she couldn't explain. Suddenly, she remembered Kamsi. Her eyes flew open as panic gripped her chest. She sat up abruptly, ignoring the dizziness that threatened to pull her back down. "Kamsi!" she called out, her voice shaky and filled with urgency. There was no response. Heart racing, Ifeoma stumbled to her feet and ran toward the nursery. The door was slightly ajar, and the room was eerily quiet. Her breath caught in her throat as her eyes landed on the empty crib. The blanket that Kamsi always clung to lay crumpled on the mattress, but Kamsi was gone. "Kamsi!" she screamed, her voice breaking with fear. She searched every corner of the nursery, hoping he was just hiding, but deep down she knew something was wrong, terribly wrong. Tears blurred her vision as she ran through the house, calling his name again and again. "Kamsi, where are you?" Desperation clawed at her as she searched every room, throwing open doors and checking under furniture. But there was no sign of her son. It felt like the walls were closing in on her, suffocating her with the weight of unimaginable grief. "No, no, no!" Ifeoma cried, collapsing onto the floor. Her body shook with uncontrollable sobs. The pain in her heart was unbearable, like a knife twisting deeper with every second Kamsi was missing. Neighbors, drawn by her anguished screams, rushed to the house. "What happened?" one woman asked, her voice filled with concern. "My son, my baby, Kamsi is gone," Ifeoma wailed, clutching her chest as though trying to hold her breaking heart together. "Someone took him. Please help me." The news spread quickly through the neighborhood. More people gathered, their faces etched with shock and sympathy. Some began searching nearby streets and calling out Kamsi's name, while others tried to comfort Ifeoma, but no words could ease the unbearable pain she felt. As she lay on the cold floor, trembling and broken, Ifeoma whispered through her tears, "Please God, bring my son back to me." What Ifeoma didn't know was that fate had already begun moving in her favor. Baba Ade, the hidden witness, was about to change everything. But for now, Ifeoma was a mother drowning in despair, clinging to hope with every fragile breath. The news of Kamsi's disappearance spread through the town of Akura like wildfire. Mothers gasped in horror, fathers shook their heads in disbelief, and children whispered to one another, frightened by the thought of a missing child. Kamsi was well loved by everyone who knew him. His bright smile and cheerful greetings had warmed the hearts of neighbors and shopkeepers alike. Now, the thought of him being in danger made the entire town restless. Neighbors began arriving at Ifeoma's house, determined to help. Some women hugged Ifeoma as she wept uncontrollably, offering words of comfort. Others brought water and tried to calm her down, though nothing could truly ease her pain. "We'll find him, Ifeoma," one elderly woman promised. "Don't lose hope." Young men gathered in groups, ready to search every corner of the town. They divided themselves into teams, each taking a different part of Akura. Some headed toward the nearby market, while others combed through quiet alleys and fields. "Kamsi, Kamsi!" they called out loudly, their voices echoing into the distance. Meanwhile, someone had managed to reach Chima, who was still on his business trip in Lagos. The moment he heard the devastating news, Chima's heart nearly stopped. "What do you mean my son is missing?" he demanded over the phone, his voice filled with panic and disbelief. He didn't wait for more details. Dropping everything, Chima booked the earliest flight back to Akure, determined to be by his wife's side. As evening approached and the search continued, the streets of Akure were filled with worried faces. Shop owners closed early to join the search. Even the town's chief sent word to the local authorities, urging them to act quickly. Despite the overwhelming sadness, the sight of the community coming together gave a small spark of hope. Strangers who had never spoken before now worked side by side, united by a shared goal, to bring Kamsi home safely. Ifeoma, though weak and heartbroken, found comfort in seeing the people's determination. She stood at her gate, watching as the search teams moved through the town. "Please," she whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face. "Let him come back to me." Chima arrived that night, his face pale and filled with anguish. He rushed to Ifeoma, pulling her into a tight embrace. "We'll find him," he promised, though his voice trembled with fear. "I won't stop until our son is back." The community's love and unity gave Ifeoma and Chima the strength to hold on to hope. And though the night seemed dark and endless, whispers of justice and rescue were already on the horizon. Thanks to Baba Adi's quiet courage, the night was heavy with tension. Search teams returned one by one, shaking their heads in frustration. Kamsi was still missing. Ifeoma sat on the front porch, her face pale and tear-streaked, while Chima paced back and forth like a man possessed. "We have to find him," Chima muttered through clenched teeth, his fists balled tightly. "I won't rest until my son is safe." Just then, a quiet voice broke through the tense silence. "Chima," the voice called softly but firmly. Turning around, Chima saw Baba Ade standing at the gate, his face calm but serious. "Baba Ade," Chima greeted respectfully, though his voice carried confusion. "Is something wrong?" The elderly man shook his head slowly. "I know what happened to Kamsi," he said gravely. Chima froze, his heart racing. You know." Ifeoma, hearing this, shot to her feet, desperation flashing in her eyes. Baba Ade nodded. "I saw everything. Amaka and Mamangozi took him. I followed them quietly and recorded it all." He held up his old but reliable phone. "Here is the proof." Chima's eyes widened as he grabbed the phone. His hands shook as he watched the grainy but clear footage. There they were, Amaka and Mamangozi carrying Kamsi out of the house, loading him into a car, and driving off toward the outskirts of town. Every detail was captured, from their faces to the car's license plate. Rage boiled inside Chima. "Those wicked women!" he growled, his voice trembling with fury. "How could they do this to my family, to an innocent child?" Baba Ade placed a calming hand on Chima's shoulder. "We must be wise, my son," he said gently. "Rushing in with anger will only put Kamsi in more danger. We need a plan." Chima took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. "You're right, Baba Ade," he agreed. "We need to act smartly and fast." Together they devised a strategy. Baba Ade would accompany Chima to the police station, where they would present the video evidence. The police would set up a discreet operation to catch Amaka and Mamangozi red-handed, before they could harm Kamsi or abandon him at the orphanage. As they finalized the plan, determination replaced Chima's earlier despair. "They won't get away with this," he vowed, his voice steady and full of resolve. "I will bring my son back." Baba Ade nodded solemnly. "Justice will be served," he assured Chima. With hope rekindled and a clear plan in place, Chima and Baba Ade prepared to take the next crucial step, confronting the wicked culprits and rescuing little Kamsi from their clutches. The sun had barely risen when Chima, Baba Ade, and a team of stern-faced police officers drove swiftly toward the outskirts of town. The tension in the air was thick, but Chima's heart burned with fierce determination. His son, little Kamsi, was close, and nothing would stop him from getting his boy back. As they neared the orphanage, Baba Ade pointed ahead. "There," he said calmly but firmly. "That's where they went." The police car stopped just a few meters away from the gate. Chima's sharp eyes spotted Amaka and Mamangozi standing near the entrance, looking restless as they whispered to each other. They held Kamsi, still wrapped in a blanket, oblivious to the storm about to crash down on them. The officers spread out quietly, moving in with careful precision. Baba Ade, always wise and observant, stayed by Chima's side. "Stay calm, my son," Baba Ade reminded him in a low voice. "Justice is already on our side." Chima clenched his fists, forcing himself to hold back the rage boiling inside him. "Today, they will answer for what they've done," he vowed. The moment Amaka spotted Chima and the police officers approaching, her eyes widened in shock. "They're here!" she hissed to Mama Ngozi, panic flashing across her face. "What do we do?" Mama Ngozi tried to stay composed, her voice sharp and defensive. "Stay calm. They have no proof. We'll deny everything." But before the women could think of an escape, Chima's powerful voice rang out, cutting through the tense air. "Where is my son?" he demanded, his eyes blazing with fury. "Chima, what are you talking about?" Amaka feigned innocence, forcing a nervous smile. "We were just taking Kamsi for a little ride. He's perfectly safe." "Enough lies," Baba Ade said sternly, stepping forward. "We saw everything. You kidnapped that child." The women's faces paled as the police officers surrounded them. "Kidnapped?" Mama Ngozi scoffed, trying to sound bold. "That's nonsense. You have no proof." Chima's lips curled into a cold smile. "Oh, we have proof," he said, pulling out Baba Ade's phone. With a tap, the video played, showing every moment of their crime, from sneaking into the nursery to driving away with Kamsi. The women's faces were unmistakable. Amaka stumbled backward, her face drained of color. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. We were, but Mama Ngozi knew they were cornered. She dropped her bold act and tried to plead. "Please, Chima," she begged, her voice shaking. "It was all a mistake. We didn't mean any harm." The police chief stepped forward, his expression hard. "Enough talk," he said. "You're both under arrest for kidnapping." As the officers handcuffed Amaka and Mama Ngozi, their protests faded into desperate sobs. The weight of their betrayal had finally caught up with them. Chima rushed toward Kamsi, who had just woken up, his innocent eyes blinking in confusion. "Kamsi," Chima whispered, scooping his son into his arms. Relief and joy flooded his heart as he hugged the boy tightly. "Daddy's here. You're safe now." Baba Adi stood quietly nearby, watching with a satisfied smile. Justice had prevailed, and the nightmare was finally over. The news of Amaka and Mama Ngozi's arrest spread through Akure like wildfire. People gathered in groups along the streets, whispering and shaking their heads in disbelief. "How could they do such a terrible thing?" one woman asked, her voice filled with shock. "To kidnap their own grandchild. It's unthinkable." At the police station, Amaka and Mama Ngozi sat in the interrogation room, their faces pale and filled with fear. Gone were their boldness and arrogance. Now they were just two desperate women caught in the act of a heartless crime. Despite their repeated attempts to deny their involvement, the video recorded by Baba Ade was undeniable. The police chief stood before them with a stern expression. "You plotted to harm an innocent child out of greed," he said firmly. "Such wickedness will not go unpunished." As they were led out in handcuffs, the gathered crowd outside the station erupted in anger. "Shame on you!" someone shouted. "You don't deserve to be part of this community." Another person added, "Ifeoma trusted you, and this is how you repay her? Kidnapping Kamsi for money? You are heartless." Even those who had once respected Mama Ngozi shook their heads in disappointment. "We never thought she could stoop so low," an elderly man murmured sadly. "Greed has poisoned her heart." Chima and Ifeoma stood nearby, watching as justice unfolded. Ifeoma's eyes brimmed with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. The nightmare was finally over. Chima held her hand tightly, his voice steady with resolve. "They will never hurt our family again," he promised. Baba Ade, standing quietly beside them, nodded with satisfaction. "Evil may hide for a while," he said wisely, "but it will always be exposed." The community's condemnation was swift and fierce. People vowed never to let such betrayal go unnoticed again. Greed and wickedness had no place in their town. As Amaka and Mama Ngozi were driven away in the police van, the crowd dispersed, murmuring prayers of gratitude for Kamsi's safe return. Justice had been served, and Akure had witnessed the triumph of truth over deceit. Though the scars of betrayal would take time to heal, Ifeoma knew one thing for sure. Her family was stronger, and love had won in the end. The bright afternoon sun shone down on Akure as Chima's car pulled into the driveway. Ifeoma stood at the front door, her hands trembling, her heart racing faster with every second. Her eyes were red from sleepless nights and endless tears. But now, hope filled her chest, a hope she hadn't felt in days. As Chima opened the car door, little Kamsi peeked out, blinking curiously. He was safe, unharmed, and as beautiful as ever. The moment Ifeoma saw him, she let out a cry that came straight from her soul. "Kamsi!" she shouted, running toward her son with open arms. Kamsi's face lit up in recognition. "Mama!" he squealed joyfully. Without wasting a second, Ifeoma scooped him up into her arms, holding him tightly against her chest. She buried her face in his soft curls, her tears soaking his little shirt. Her entire body shook with emotion. "Oh, my baby, my precious Kamsi," she sobbed. "I thought I lost you forever." Kamsi, sensing his mother's tears, wrapped his tiny arms around her neck. "Don't cry, Mama," he said in his sweet, innocent voice. "I'm here." The neighbors who had gathered outside to witness the reunion clapped and cheered. "Thank God!" one woman exclaimed. "The child is back home." "God has answered our prayers," another neighbor added, wiping tears from her eyes. Chima stood beside Ifeoma, watching the emotional scene with gratitude and pride. "We're a family again," he said softly, placing a comforting hand on Ifeoma's back. Baba Ade, who had quietly followed them home, smiled gently. "The storm is over," he said wisely. "Now it's time for peace." The town's joy was contagious. Some women sang songs of thanksgiving, while others danced in celebration. People brought gifts and food to the family, eager to share in their happiness. "We are so happy for you," one elderly woman said, handing Ifeoma a basket of fruit. "Your strength and love as a mother have inspired us all." As the evening wore on, the house filled with laughter and joy. Kamsi played happily with the neighbors' children, completely unaware of the danger he had just escaped. Ifeoma watched him, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She whispered a silent prayer of thanks, knowing that no matter what challenges came their way, she would always protect her son with everything she had. That night, Akua celebrated not just the safe return of a child, but the triumph of love, courage, and community. Evil had been defeated, and a mother's love had proven stronger than any scheme. The story of Ifeoma and Kamsi is a powerful reminder of some important truths about life. It teaches us that love, courage, and community can overcome even the darkest moments. Ifeoma's fierce love for her child gave her the strength to survive the terrible pain of Kamsi's kidnapping. Despite her fear and heartbreak, she never gave up hope, proving that a mother's love is unbreakable. This story also shows how greed and selfishness can destroy lives. Amaka and Mama Ngozi's desire for wealth led them down a wicked path, causing them to lose everything, including the trust and respect of their community. Their betrayal serves as a warning that evil actions never go unpunished. At the same time, the story highlights the power of community. When Kamsi went missing, the entire town of Akura came together, offering help, comfort, and strength to Ifeoma and her family. Without the courage and wisdom of Baba Ade, justice might not have been served. His bravery showed that even one person can make a big difference by standing up for what is right. In the end, good triumphed over evil. Love and truth won, and peace was restored to the family and the town. This story reminds us that no matter how difficult life gets, we should always hold on to hope, trust in the support of others, and believe that justice will prevail.